What's going on, guys? Chip here. Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG video, joined today by two special guests. We have Brad Curcio up on your top left and Alex Hill. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good.
Yeah. So these guys, if you guys remember, we did a video a few months ago talking about last season's championship point and World's Invitation structure. So we're going to be doing the same thing here. Pokemon did just announce the 2018 World Championship point requirement, as well as regional dates and championship point payouts at specific levels of tournaments. So we're going to be talking about all of those things. All of this information is on Pokemon.com, so you can find links to all of these web pages we're going to be looking at in the description of the video. And yeah, we're just going to hop into things and start off talking about first off, the championship point requirement. Now, just a little disclaimer here. We will mostly be talking about North America Masters TCG requirements. We won't really touch that much on juniors or seniors or the other regions. We can mention them briefly, but since we are all Masters in North America, that's mostly what we're going to be. And we play TCG, that's what we're going to be talking about. So, first off, we'll just mention right off the bat, 400 championship points is the CP requirement to get to Worlds in 2018. A lot different from this past season, where the requirement was 500 points. The previous season, I think, was 300 points. So, you know, it's kind of just been all over the place the past 3 seasons now. So, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts initially here, just based off of 400 points to get to Worlds for the 2018 season? We can start with Alex.
I think 400 points, especially with some of the bumps that they've given to the regionals placements this year, is too low. Mm-hmm. I'll kind of just leave it at that for now.
Brad, yeah.
Way too low.
Way too low.
Way too low.
I mean, I remember when we did our first video, you guys were both for, or Brad at least, was for increasing the previous championship point requirement, and that was before they made any changes, so...
that was before even the bump.
Right, yeah. The adjustments they made last season. But
400 would be fine if they nixed cups giving points, but... So
just regionals and no cups at all.
Yeah, and internationals. But
you know, and the way that things are set up, you know, I would be fine. Maybe not fine, but I would be happier with 400 if there were only 3/4 of League Cups.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
You know, and I think a lot of
the old days where it was what 4 regionals and 4 cups, something like that too would have been fine.
What counted? Yeah, absolutely.
Like a best finish limit of 4 cups on the season.
And 4 regionals.
Right. Yeah, that'd be fine. I think a lot of the problem is just the fact that you can go to just kind of the idea that somebody can go to 8 League Cups, win 8 League Cups, and then they have 400 points.
Yeah.
In addition to how many of the lower placements at regionals give out the really high kicker points, but we'll touch on that later. I think.
We'll definitely get to regionals stuff here in just a little bit. But I do want to start just kind of looking back at the past couple of seasons. I think in 2016, like we said, the requirement was 300 points to get to Worlds. Now the tournament structure did look a lot different. There was no League Cups. There was City Championships, which are pretty similar, but people felt that 300 points in that structure previously, and that's with state championships and stuff as well, which is a tournament structure that doesn't exist anymore. A lot of people thought that you could get too many points locally in that structure. You could get, theoretically, 290 of your 300 points, or 280 of your points
90,
locally,
you're right,
with city championships and league challenges. So I think that they heard the vocal group of TCG players dislike the way that the format was set up and changed it in 2017 to 500 points. Now, I do think that at the start of last season, though, they kind of just messed up, and their numbers weren't great. They weren't going to have enough people at Worlds, and which is why they made the change eventually. But overall, I think a lot of the more competitive players were fine with the change to 500 points. It made it more exclusive Worlds, but a lot of people were also kind of against the 500 points. There was much more of an emphasis on travel, going to these regional championships, and it was harder to get your invite if you were only going to be able to go to 1 or 2 regionals. So I think that was a gripe a lot of people had. So I think they've heard kind of the gripes of the past 2 seasons and tried to find some middle ground here with this tournament structure. But I think that the big difference here is that this year we will have 4 seasons of League Cups as opposed to last season where we just had 3 seasons of League Cups. So, and with no kickers and no best finish limits in place for regional championships, I can't even imagine what the top 16 race is gonna look like. So, that's something we can talk about as well. I did just mention top 16. We'll talk about that real quick. Day 2 invitations do stay unchanged. The top 16 players from the U.S. and Canada, the top 22 players from Europe, top 8 from Latin America, and top 8 from Oceania will all get automatic invites to the second day of the World Championships. Is this structure something you guys are fine with? Just having, is that a good number, the way that top 16 is determined through championship points? Do you guys agree with that, or would you rather have there be some other system, something like ELO, to determine top 16 or something like that? What are you guys' thoughts on that? We can start with
Top
Brad on this
16
one.
seems fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a matter of the way to get there is the issue.
Right. Yeah. The way that it's set up with how many points you get from regionals right now is kind of broken. With internationals, with the way the stipends are set up, but actually I think 16 is too few.
Okay.
For the players that play, for the amount of players that play in the U.S. and Canada, and then also the amount of really top tier players that play. Because this year I would say you could have argued for 25 players being in that top 16.
Sure. Yeah, the race was very close this season.
And in the last 3 months of the race, I don't know, Brad, you remember there were probably 4 or 5 people kind of jumped in and out of top 16.
Yeah.
So definitely at least 20 players.
It changed after every single major tournament the last few months.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think they understand. So maybe there are 25 players who kind of you could argue to be in that top, into that auto day 2 qualification from U.S. and Canada. And they probably still want it to be competitive, so they wouldn't make it all to all the 25 players. Maybe they only make it 20. But I think there should be more than 16 from U.S. and Canada.
You just don't want to be scared.
Yeah, Alex, for those who don't know, did finish at 16th place, I believe, this year in the championship point rating.
I was 16th this year, and 2 years ago in 2015, I was 17th.
Last year, I was 16th.
And then last year, I was probably around 25th.
Sure.
So
I was 16th last year with 2 league challenges open. Yeah,
but that's your own fault. So.
Yeah. I was 16th. That's not a problem.
Yeah, that's fair. It ended up working out. So, so would you, Alex, have rather seen maybe a changed because they want to have 64 players auto day 2, right? I think that's the number they want to stick at. So would you have taken away some spots from the European region, you think?
So the problem with it is actually, well, I don't actually know how they do Japan and Korea's day 2 invites. I don't know if they actually do exactly 64 or pretty close. I don't want to step on any toes, but I think I would take spots away from Europe.
Okay.
Maybe redistribute 2 of the Europe spots in the U.S. and Canada, and that might be a better compromise.
Yeah, for sure.
But the problem is in past years, it's very hard on championship points alone to compare U.S. and Canada to Europe, just because there's been a lot of disparity in the amount of regionals, the amount of League Cups.
It ends up looking a lot different.
Yeah,
between the 2 countries.
I don't know that I can say that there aren't 22 players in Europe that deserve day 2 auto invites, but I think that there are more players in the U.S. than just 16 that deserve day 2 invites.
Sure. No, I definitely can see those points. And also worth mentioning as well, since, I said we wouldn't talk too much about, foreign countries and stuff, but everywhere else in the world except for U.S. and Canada has a championship point requirement of 250 to get to Worlds. So Europe, Latin America, Oceania, and South Africa all have a 250 championship point requirement for Masters, which, it's seems pretty crazy that you could just go win 5 League Cups and then chill the rest of the year.
I don't think they can go to 5 League Cups.
Right.
That's true as well, yeah.
There's actually a big problem this year in Europe with League Cups not being sanctioned, and I believe the same is true for Oceania. I'm not sure about Latin America. And also, Oceania, when we were over there for internationals, they were saying, we haven't had a regionals, we haven't had a League Cup, we don't know when they're going to be sanctioned. It's March.
Yep.
So... I think this is an overcompensation on Pokemon's end from seeing what happened last year. and maybe they'll get way too many invites from it, or maybe they know that there just won't be a lot of League Cups or regionals in those areas, and so
That's true.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Or we're going to Hawaii, like others said, and then people don't show up.
Yeah, there was a post online where, you know, we could be going back to Hawaii for Worlds 2018, and that always just brings attendance down a little bit because Hawaii is very expensive to travel to and stay in. So, but yeah,
Sosa can't drive.
Yeah, Sosa cannot drive, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the gist of it right there with championship point requirements. Now we're going to move into how you earn these championship points. And we're going to talk about the tournament structure. It stays basically unchanged from last year of the tournaments of where you can get points. There's no new tournament structure. They didn't take away any of the tournament structures. The biggest change, I think, and this won't largely have an effect on the U.S., probably mostly in the European region and other regions, is that regional championships and special events are both share the same amount of championship point payout, so they're like kind of grouped into one thing now, as opposed to last season where first place is a special event earned 130 points. This year they earn 200 points, same as a regional championship. So, and they also changed the kicker structure for regional championships, where the more people that are at the tournament, the farther out they pay out championship points. And they also updated the points for, you know, if you make top 32, you get 60 points, as opposed to last season. At the beginning of the year, I think you got 40 points for getting...
it was 32 for top 32.
Yeah, see, so it wasn't even...
Then they bumped it by 20 to 52.
52.
Then now this year it's 60.
So, you know, big changes. I think that's a welcomed change, in my opinion. I think that they didn't pay out enough points for the top end of regionals, and also lower, but I feel like it pays out too many points the farther down you go. Like, I feel like getting top 128 at a 400-person regional shouldn't net 40 points. That seems like a lot of points for just getting top 128 at a 400-person regional. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
And you say top 128, and at most of these tournaments, top 128 was players with range of a record of 6-3 to 5-3-1.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
And so, especially at a 400-person tournament, that could even include players at like 5-4.
Right.
And so, like, you barely were positive, and a lot of these players very likely they weren't even in contention to make. And I mean, I was there too. Like, I had a couple top 128s, a couple top 64s at regionals, and in some of those, you know, I wasn't even in contention for top cut going into the 8th round, into the 9th round. You know, so it was not something that I think anybody would consider a stellar tournament performance, or even a lot of people would consider really a good tournament performance. It's kind of just average, mediocre, but you get a lot of points for it now, which I think is a little crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
Another point to point out is that there is no best finish limit for regional championships and special events. Last season, you could only earn championship points at 8, but now there's no limit. You can literally travel to every single regional championship and theoretically get points at every single regionals. So, I don't know, do you guys like no best finish limit, or do you think there should have been a limit in some way?
I think it's really bad.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's horrible, but I'm also like, well, yeah, for both reasons, yeah, it's too easy to get an invite, and I'm looking at it in the top 16 perspective, and if you miss a regionals or bomb a regionals, that you're like 50 points behind everybody else now.
Yeah, you're like auto, because anybody who gets top 128 or better goes like 5-4, 5-3-1, 5-2-2, 6-3. They get like 40 points. And I mean, this year the top 16 race was down to 10 points, less than 10 points for a couple of the spots at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like could have really mattered.
Yeah, very, very close. So, I mean, it seems like if you're a player who's considering going for top 16, the emphasis is going to be huge on these regional championships. You are going to have to go to as many regionals you can go to, if not every single one. So, and I'm sure there are people who are going to be trying to go to every single one. So we'll see how that shapes up. But let's kind of shift gears and backstep a little bit over to League Cups. We'll talk about these briefly. And let's also think about this from the perspective as a player who, you know, maybe this is their first season going for an invite. Maybe they're just like, you know, kind of more casual in the game. And they know that they're not going to be going for a top 16 race, or competing in the top 16 race, I suppose. So we'll look at League Cups kind of from that point of view. So there will be a best finish limit for League Cups of 2 per quarter, where you can there will be 4 total quarters throughout the year, and a best finish limit is shared with league challenges. You can earn 50 points for first place, 40 at second, 32 for top 4, which I believe is a bump from the start of last season, 25 from top 8, and then they also added championship points for farther down in League Cups, which is something, last season you could only earn points at League Cups if you made top 8. But now this season, if you get top 16 and there were more than 48 people there, you do earn 20 points. If there are more than 100 people, you can earn 16 at top 32. And if there are more than 200 people, which I can't imagine too many, I guess some areas in Texas might hit huge numbers like that for Cups, but 13 points for top 64. So, kind of looking at it from a different point of view, what are your guys? You could theoretically earn your invite just from League Cups, getting 8 first places, 2 per quarter. You could get there, and I believe did you guys both win 6 cups this past year, or was it
only Brad? I only won 5.
Okay, Alex won 5.
But you could have won. You could have won 6. I'm sure. Right?
I actually, Kyle Warden, one of the guys from Georgia, he reminded me. He flipped like 3 heads on a gym badge to donk me in top 4 of a cup. And I also like super dead drew both games. And it was my Greninja versus Xerneas break, so like a super favorable matchup, and I just kind of got super unlucky. But I mean, I also at that point, so it's kind of the thing that kind of skewed. Like somebody was asking earlier today, like who actually won 6 cups, and I'm kind of like, well, I only won 5. But I had a first and a top 4 and a quarter, and so I only get points if I make finals, and then I only get 10 points or 20 if I win, so it's not really worth it.
Especially if you're having to drive a long ways away for a cup or something like that.
Right, exactly. And so if I had a better reason to win on one more cup, then I probably would have tried to grind for it.
Right.
But now it seems like for those going for top 16, League Cups are going to be just as important as regionals almost. Like everyone who wants to be in top 16 is probably going to try their hardest to have 400 total points from League Cups.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
until they remove the best finish limit from Cups too.
Oh my gosh.
Then I'm guaranteed top 16.
Yeah, you're good. So one interesting thing about how we've mentioned League Cups and regionals being added is near the end of last year, there was some kind of dissatisfaction in the community. I think pretty much everybody kind of agrees with this idea that it was more beneficial to go to League Cups in some ways than to go to regionals. Because especially without the point bump, you would get 40 points for top 16 regionals, and then it just goes down from there. Whereas if you get second at a League Cup, you get that same 40 points, or you could even win and get an extra 10 points.
Right.
And so people are like, you should be rewarded for going to regionals. You should want to go to regionals. That should be where like all the competitive players go. They shouldn't stay home to go to League Cups. And I think the bump to some of those regionals placements, like top 16 and top 32, and even the bump to top 64 to some extent, help make up for that.
For sure.
So I like that.
Yeah, so
I think the other bumps to the League Cup, I don't know. I don't have any problem with the bumps to League Cup points. There's not a problem with that, I don't think.
Right, yeah. Most of my League Cups were probably around 25 to 30 people, I'd say, this year. So a decent amount would have probably hit that. I don't think... I probably only went to one cup that would have hit the 48 kicker to have top 16 points. And that would have been like right at the beginning of the year.
I think most of mine do.
Hit 48.
Hit 48.
Yeah, around. That's like if I'm in Houston, they do. If I go up to like Austin or something or San Antonio, they don't. But
okay.
Yeah, we usually have about 1 per quarter in Georgia that hits that.
Okay.
I think last year we had like one that was like 70 players.
Yeah, the first quarters.
And I know the Brazil there was a cup at Brazil Internationals that had over 100 players.
Okay.
And so like that one, I don't know of any that hit over 200 to get that top 64 kicker, but the top 32 kicker I'm sure will actually get hit this year. And then another thing to point out is the top 8 kicker was reduced from 32 to 24. So the way that the Swiss structure works you get a top 8 with 21 players.
Right.
So there was a disparity, a really, really big disparity, and actually a lot of the cups that I went to had between that 21 and 32 players. So at the point where you would have a top 8 cup, but you would make top 8, you'd get no points. And so that's only between 21 and 23 players right now. So that kicker being dropped from 32 to 24 for top 8 points is actually really big and a good idea, I think.
No, yeah, I agree, and I would say a lot of my cups kind of fell in that area too, where we would have a cut to top 8, but only the top 4 would get points. So.
Yeah, and it's just depressing.
Yeah,
like that happened to me at least once, maybe twice this year, and it happened at some cities before. You know, you make top 8, you feel accomplished. You lose, you still kind of feel accomplished, and then you realize you don't get any points.
You get like nothing.
You lose some of that accomplishment. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, definitely, can make you feel a little better for sure. So yeah, but kind of going back to that, the mentality of maybe someone who's not going to be going to a ton of regionals. I think that this structure is going to be a lot more similar to the 2016 world structure, where you can earn your invite going to basically maybe just 1 or 2 regionals, and be pretty safe in going to just 1 or 2 regionals and getting your filling up your league cups every quarter, or getting close to it at least.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you guys like the idea of making it a little bit more accessible to, obviously, like, there would be a lot more people at this year's Worlds, I think. Just looking at the way this past season went and the way that this tournament structure is set up, there will be a lot more people at Worlds in 2018 than there will be in 2017. But do you like that the idea of having an invite more open to, you don't have to travel as much necessarily. Whereas this past season you had to go to, I would imagine most players who got their invite ended up going to at least 3 or 4 regionals at the minimum. So I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts on that? We can start with Brad.
The elitist side of me says no, it's incredibly easy to get an invite, and if you want the invite to actually mean something, then you can't just hand it out to everybody. But I feel like that's kind of what Pokemon wants to do. They want a lot of people at their World just to, for whatever reason, boost attendance, boost publicity, whatever they want. So for them, I think they're getting what they want. But in my opinion, it's just way, way, way too easy to just get an invite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think my thoughts on the matter. There's kind of two kind of driving ideas for why I don't like this. The first one is that I think to call yourself one of the best players in the world, to qualify for the World Championships, really of anything, of baseball, of figure skating, whatever, you should have to prove yourself against other kind of best players, or at least other players from other regions. I don't think that you can call yourself one of the best players in the world just by being one of the best players in your local area. And maybe there are some areas in the world, or in the U.S., in the world, where you can do that. Maybe in Chicago that's fine. There's a lot of good players, like Chicago, Indiana area right now.
Houston.
Sure, Houston, whatever. But just that idea, I think that you should have to prove yourself against other players from other regions to be one of the best players in the world. And then the other one is that I think the season is the proving ground, and then Worlds Day 1 should be the accomplishment. But the way that Pokemon has set it up is that Worlds Day 1 is the proving ground, and Worlds Day 2 is the accomplishment. And I would rather have qualifying for Worlds at all be like a really big accomplishment and really difficult, but people have kind of pointed out to me that like a lot of people think that really like Day 2 is the accomplishment, and that's how the season is set up. But I would rather have it, if you've qualified for Worlds, that's a really big accomplishment. You proved yourself throughout the season.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I definitely think, I can definitely agree with you guys there. But, from our point of view, we're all players who I feel like can pretty easily win 2 League Cups each quarter. I feel like if we, all go to enough, that we'll be able to do that. Brad proved that. He went to 6, 1, 6, whatever. But
Whatever.
whatever. But I for the player who, maybe this, like, they're just starting out, they want to learn this tournament structure, I think that this looks a lot less daunting, to where last season it looked near impossible to earn your Worlds invite for someone who was newer in the game or someone who knew they weren't going to be able to go to a lot of regionals or couldn't afford to go to a lot of regionals. Whereas this tournament, like this season, it seems like that's much more reachable. And for maybe a player who's not as hasn't played the game as long, they're not going to as easily go in and win 6 League Cups like Brad Curcio can. They might play in a couple, get a second and a top 8 or a first and a top 16 or something like that, get a few points, and that it just makes it, I think, feel a lot more manageable to a wider range of players. So I don't know, any thoughts to add to that?
Not really. So my friend Wade, I don't know if either of you met him. He started playing this year, and he was at the beginning of the season just playing for the fun of it. He had no intention of getting his invite, and then he started like asking me for help. I was like, helping him with everything. He was actually pretty close. Like if he had a decent finish in Mexico, he would have been able to, I think, top 128 Nats or something and get his invite.
Okay.
And that was last year when it was a little bit harder. So he was going to play regardless at the drive, even if he knew he wasn't going to get his Worlds invite. So like, I don't know if that. The problem is with Pokemon, if you don't get your Worlds invite, there's nothing else you're really working towards. Like you can have 490 championship points this season, and that's basically the same as 0. So
sure.
For newer players, there's nothing to work towards besides the invite, and I think that's maybe one of the bigger problems. Because like in Magic, there's 24 people that go to their Worlds every year.
Yeah.
And there's 8 of them are from the United States. And Magic has a bigger player base than Pokemon, and there's literally no way the amount of good players are going to get their invite. So nobody who doesn't deserve an invite is going to get one. But Magic still has a giant player base, and they work towards other things, RPTQs, PTQs, Grand Prix, things like that. So if we had a better structure like that, then we could have Worlds be the more elitist thing. But for now, there's nothing to work towards, so everybody just gets a Worlds invite.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and in Magic they have the Pro Tour, and that's from what I understand, that's kind of the thing, is like I made the Pro Tour, and that's kind of like the big goal. And then from there, within that, it's kind of like then the top tier of the Magic players are going for Worlds. And so here we have Worlds Day 1 as the Pro Tour, the kind of goal everybody's chasing, and then the Day 2 is the Magic Worlds, the really hard to attain goal. I agree with Brad. I would like to see if there was another goal that was more attainable, that people could work towards, that'd be good. I don't know if such a drastic change from what we're coming up to I don't know how to do math, it's 13th or 14th Worlds that Pokemon's had, and if they just made it much harder. If they made it much harder to qualify, I don't think that such a drastically small Worlds like Magic has is good. But if they made it if they made it much harder, like only 100 players total or something, I think there'd be a lot of community outlash.
So I'm not sure what players something else to work towards.
Yeah,
because even so for the Pro Tours in Magic, you have to win a pre-Pro Tour qualifier to qualify for a regional Pro Tour qualifier to qualify for the Pro Tour. Well, I mean, there's other ways to qualify for it if you have enough points or whatever. But you have to win 2 other tournaments or top 4 one of them just to even qualify for the Pro Tour. So there's a lot of little smaller milestones to hit. So if you have not won any of them before, next year it's like, okay, cool, I can win a pre-Pro Tour or a regional Pro Tour or something like that. So you have little stepping stones to work towards something else besides the 24-player Worlds. But I'm pretty sure Pokemon doesn't want to just literally copy their system, so I don't know what else they could do, even if they did.
I mean, if they don't want to copy their system, they shouldn't have done it already.
I mean,
because our regionals, our Magic Grand Prix events, our internationals, there are 4 in the year, just like 4 Pro Tour events,
Yeah.
They're, and I mean, the problem is that
Pokemon.
That'd be really cool. I would like that to some ways, but it's obviously not what Pokemon wants, because they want these internationals to be big events. Pokemon likes to have these big events to kind of show off, to stream them and show the world, like, this Pokemon tournament, it's really big. They're all really good players,
Sure.
And it would cost them a lot more money. I think Magic flies a lot of people to the Pro Tour events, and Pokemon probably doesn't want to fly as many people as Magic does.
And they still have a pretty decent attendance for them because they fly everybody out to them.
Sure. So,
I don't know how many people qualify for them though.
So I feel like I definitely agree with you guys, and that's honestly something I hadn't really considered. you know, with Pokemon, we basically are just working towards that World's Invite, and there's no other, you know, there's nothing else to really work towards besides the World Invite. So maybe if they had something in place different for that, for, you know, players who might not feel like they can get a World's Invite but still want to play Pokemon and work towards something, that would be great. But I'm not sure what that really could be. Like at League Cups, you can win a playmat that says champion on it, and, you know, maybe a booster box depending on your store that's running the League Cup. But outside of that, like, I don't know what else they could set up to make you feel like you're winning something. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Not literally outside of copying the structure, I haven't really like given it much thought. But I mean, obviously the money's nice, you know. Even if you're not getting your invite, you still want to win a regionals, I'm sure. But like, I haven't really given it much thought to think of anything else I could do. But something else would be nice.
Like something else to work towards with, like, if, okay, you didn't get your 400 points to get your World's Invite, but you got 300 points, so we're going to send you this and this. Like, maybe if you get 300 points, they send you a booster box or something like that. Like, I don't even know if that would be something that, I don't know. Just
I mean, they have. The other thing Magic does is they have their like pro sponsorship. I think there's like bronze, silver, gold, and platinum level
so cool.
pros. Yeah, so for that, in order to become a platinum level pro, you have to like day 2 a lot of Grand Prix or something like. I don't know the exact numbers behind it or anything, but like they could do that in Pokemon with certain CP thresholds, and then the platinum pros, like for the next quarter or year, they don't have to qualify for pro tours. They're just invited, and then all the platinum pros get appearance fees to show up to Grand Prix, pro tours, anything. So whatever tournament they show up to, they get money. So it gives like the incentive like that. Or even like the bronze people don't have to qualify for the PPTQ, they just go to the regional one. And silver ones can play in like one PTQ or something a year, little things like that. So even if you're like, you'll still be playing for championship points to get something, but now you have another thing to work towards. So they have their qualifiers to work towards and pro levels to work through, which you can even get, I think, through like Friday Night Magic, stuff like that, slowly. But by playing in literally any event, there's a reason to get more points to qualify for the next tier above whatever you are right now, which is really, really cool. But instead of just top 16.
Yeah, I think some sort of a Worlds qualifier event might be one idea. You know, like there's
so like not exactly a last chance qualifier, but like if you got this many points, you can play in this last chance tournament, something like that.
It'd be like similar to what Magic's doing. Like throughout the year, you try to qualify for the World Tour qualifier, or you get enough points to skip it. You know.
Okay.
And then
well, that's basically that's kind of like what Day 1 of Worlds is, right?
Yeah, it kind of is. So and that's kind of why. It's not really a great idea, is you're kind of just replacing that system by just not calling Day 1 Worlds. And I kind of talked about that with some people yesterday and got put in my place, you know.
Sure.
Calling Day 1 Worlds not Worlds.
Right. Calling it like the Worlds qualifier or something like that.
And I don't think that's really a great idea, a great solution. And I think the other way kind of Brad alluded to was maybe within qualifying for Worlds, there are different tiers, you know. Like there's baseline at 400. And then at 600 points, you get a 1-round bye.
Yeah, something like that.
And at 800 points, you get a 2-round bye and a $500 stipend. And then at 1,000 points, whatever, and then there's the Day 2. Like auto Day 2. Something like that, I think, could satisfy a lot more people just by giving everybody something to work towards.
Because even the people that got their invite, but you know, like Altavilla or anybody else that was 16th or 17th, 18th, 19th, you know, they have over 1,000 championship points, but they just get their Day 1 invite just like everybody else. So it's another like thing for them to work, or the other people to work towards. If they're close-ish to the top 16 race, but barely miss out on it, then they just kind of wasted all the time, money just to get it in Day 1 invite. So it gives something for every tier of player to work towards.
No, yeah, I think that's, you know, some good thoughts thrown out there for sure. And, you know, maybe we will see them make some adjustments like that. I feel like the way that they've set up the structure this season is it's a, you know, I think we're really close to having professional Pokemon players. Like, I think there's a couple people that are kind of trying to do that, but it's like, I feel like, you know, Magic, there's professional Magic the Gathering players. Like, I think that's something that we are close to, but I feel like this season was almost kind of a step backwards for that. But on the opposite end of that, I feel like the structure is kind of a step forward for the more casual players. So it's kind of like give or take, which one do you find your, like, of course, you know, we're gonna, you know, all three of us, I feel, are competitive players who would, want to try hard for, certain accomplishments and stuff like that. So, we're going to dislike kind of some of the changes they've made. But then for the more casual player, they're going to be really excited about this because now they have, it's attainable, kind of what we were talking about earlier. So, anything else to add in reference to kind of the League Cup structure for this season? Or if not, we can move on to talking a little bit more about regionals.
No, we kind of got off topic about cups. I didn't remember if we were talking.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we were talking about cups. So.
I feel like it kind of all relates.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of all relates back to that because that's kind of what the where the base of the structure is kind of built around League Cups. I feel like, but
if I can just say one other thing about League Cups, there kind of been some discussion like who actually wins 6 League Cups, who will actually win 8 League Cups next year, and the thing with that is it's kind of like that's not really the problem. Not many people will do that, and I mean people even said like if there's a player at Worlds that has exactly 400 points and it's only from 8 League Cup wins, everybody's gonna laugh at them, and it's just like whatever, and winning 8 League Cups is not easy,
Sure.
The thing is though that not all League Cups are created equally, I was looking at some stats at one point, and like Alaska had like 10-person. I don't remember if it's a League Cup or League Challenge, but like somebody could go and win 8 League Cups in Alaska of 10 people or less,
Sure.
Or also, if somebody was really savvy, they could kind of go, well, there's a regional this weekend, and so all of my hometown players are gonna be gone, so I'm not gonna go to the regional. I'll go to that League Cup, get easy points against non-Worlds players,
Sure.
Or even to take that a step further, they could go, I'm going to fly somewhere else where there's 2 League Cups, and I know all the best players from that area are going to this regional. And so I know people have kind of said, like they're buying, like people are buying invites and different, and this does open the door to somewhat more easily buy an invite. Mm-hmm. It's a bit extreme, but I just don't like the idea that you could do that.
Yeah, and I feel like you said, like you could do this, but I do feel like the majority of players who are going to, pay money to fly somewhere are going to choose to go to the regionals. But like you said, the option is now there, whereas maybe in the past it wasn't necessarily there.
Yeah, because like even with me, I have like a League Cup in Houston, San Antonio, and Austin all on the same day. So if I want to, I can go to Houston, Kettler can go to San Antonio, Herman can go to Austin. Theoretically, we could all win a League Cup on the same day and not have to play against any of us. So, little things like that. And I don't think somebody's just going to win 8 League Cups, get their invite, and call it a day. But it's very easy to, top 4, half the League Cups, make finals at 2, win 2, and then top 64, 2 regionals, and that's also your invite. So, like, you're not going to just win 8 Cups. It's the fact that you can get, 300
the
plus
majority of your points
cups.
From Cups, yeah.
Yeah. And then have 2 not very solid performances at regionals, and then your World's invite player.
Sure. I mean, I think we should also I feel like League Cups, like Alex kind of said, are really dependent on your area. And I did go to some really easy cups, but I also went to some hard cups. I went to a couple of cups that had less than 15 people, but I also, I won a couple cups with less than 15 people, but I also won a couple cups with more than 30 people. So it's really all over the place with kind of how cups are set up. And I feel like to win 2 League Cups per quarter, you're going to usually go to more than 2 cups. You're not going to necessarily just win 2 and go to no other ones, unless you're Brad, maybe. But so like it's not guaranteed that you're going to get 400 points from League Cups. It's like it's possible for someone to get those 400 points and that's all they get, but it's not guaranteed. Like it's something you still have to work for and still have to go to a lot of tournaments to try to accomplish. But you don't necessarily have to travel out of your own area. So, okay, so I think that kind of wraps up League Cups pretty nicely. And I know we touched on regionals a little bit, but we're going to kind of move on to we do have kind of a regional schedule already set up. Now, once again, this will be linked for people who want to see where the regionals are going to be if you've got one near your hometown, all that kind of stuff. And one of the big changes, I think, this year between this year and last season is that there are a lot more expanded events. Now, just looking at the calendar, it's basically every other regional is standard expanded. And I counted, there are 7 expanded regionals and 8 standard regionals. So it's as close to 50-50 as they could have gotten it. So I don't know. Do you guys like that they're kind of wanting expanded to play a bigger part in the tournament series for the season?
I kind of like it because if they're going to keep expanded around, we have to actually like play tournaments for it. I think I played in one expanded event last year because I kind of got they were all on Sosa side of town, and then I missed the one in Toronto, so I played in one expanded event.
Yeah, I believe I only played in one. I didn't go to as many regionals as you guys did, but I went to 5 and. Well, no, I did go there. There were 2 expanded events because I went to Philadelphia and St. Louis, which were both expanded.
Yeah,
the other ones were standard.
Yeah, I didn't go to Philly either. So like, I didn't play expanded at all last year, and that felt. I mean, if it's going to be a part of the tournament season, then it should be a decent part of the tournament season. I'm pretty sure we're not going to have internationals as expanded again or anything like that. But
okay.
I feel like if they want to promote it to be a tournament or a format, then we should have tournaments for it.
Sure, I can agree with that for sure. Alex, anything?
Yeah, like personally, I don't like expanded. I've been talking about this before, and I like tournament or I like formats that are kind of more condensed, where the pool of viable decks is smaller, so you could potentially you kind of have the option to have a better idea of what you're trying to counter, or you can play one of the top decks and you have your in-game skill or your teching kind of carry you through. Whereas an expanded is kind of just a crapshoot of what you could play against.
It's wide open.
However, with the ban list and Pokemon kind of more monitoring the expanded format, I'm willing to give it a shot. I think it could be a lot better than it has been before, and I think it'll be. I don't know. I don't like the format overall, but I don't really have a problem with that. And I agree that I think that it's good that it's more prevalent than it was last year.
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say.
The ban list is the potential to make the format great or make the format awful. Like if they just keep 2 cards banned the entire year and do nothing, like if it's obvious something's a problem, then they can do something about it. But if they just leave everything alone, then it's gonna be annoying just to play against. This deck dominated standard regionals. Now play against it in expanded instead, where it's got a few more broken cards to it.
Sure.
So like, it's up to Pokemon how good they make it, I guess.
Yeah, well, they like have said that like with this new structure, they're monitoring it, and with each set release, they'll make an announcement on if there's any changes or if there's if the ban list is going to stay the same. So it would be interesting to see after we've had a couple of expanded regionals. I think that. At least Fort Wayne will be before the next set release, and I think Daytona Beach will also be before the winter set. So if that's the case, then we'll have had 2 expanded regionals, so that's 2 large tournaments to draw from for them to determine, okay, do we need to make any changes to the legality of cards? Like if we see those 2 tournaments come out and Trevenant just absolutely blows it up, I think that's probably the main card that a lot of people are, I think that's one of the main cards that I think people consider as like one of those quote degenerate cards and expanded, just that and nobody likes getting tournament item locked, right? So or just dealing with item lock in general necessarily, but so if we see Trevenant come out and dominate both of those regionals, I really would not be surprised if we saw it hit the ban list for the the next set.
Yeah, I would be surprised if we didn't see it banned if that happened, or even not if it dominates, but if it has a good showing. It just depends on what Pokemon thinks.
Because like in expanded, we saw like no deck with Forest of Giant Plants won in expanded regionals this past year. I don't believe. We saw a decent I think Kettler got
Azul
second,
did.
Right? Oh, that's right. Azul did.
Azul won it. Yeah,
that's right. So
the one he didn't cheat in.
So, but yeah, like Lurantis, like just Vileplume decks is the reason that Forest got banned, right? Because it just takes away your opponent's ability to get that, to make it so you don't get to play the game, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the reason in Expanded is so much easier, as well as with that Battle Compressor Revitalizer engine. Yeah. It just that's why there's such a big difference there. You get it out so much more consistently. I think that maybe Pokemon, the reason they didn't ban something like Trevenant is because you need to have. It's a little harder to pull off the turn 1 Trevenant maybe than it is to pull off the turn 1 Vileplume.
Yeah, I think it's easier. I mean, with Ascension and then Wally, especially you have Jirachi, you have new Tapu Lele now to grab Wally, as well as Battle Compressor VS Seeker.
If you're going second, it's almost impossible not to turn one Trev. If you're going
Yeah.
first, it's still incredibly
Yeah, if you're
likely,
going
but-
second, it's definitely
But it's not
easy.
a definite lock. I think is wise. You can kill it, Lysander, Guzma, whatever. Do
That's
something
true,
to get
yeah.
around it, or even if it comes what break you have Tina promo, you can hex do a lot more things to shut it off than if just Valplume hits the field, you're locked.
Well, and so my thought with them not banning Trevenant is that I think when they're testing these things, they're testing the new sets. So I'm sure that they were testing with this expanded ban list with Burning Shadows and potentially even with the next set. So I think they might have said, well, new Darkrai came out, and that makes Dark so good that Trevenant's not a problem. You know, we
That's
still have
definitely
Yveltal.
fair,
Like Archeops got banned, but Yveltal is still good enough to beat Trevenant and hold his own in the format, and so is Darkrai, and so Trevenant has enough checks in the game right now that it doesn't need to be banned. That's my thought with why they haven't banned Trevenant.
That's also fair.
Yeah.
But so and Chip mentioned this, that we have two of the first 3 regionals are expanded, including the very first one, and I'll say that that's definitely not a coincidence. Not a coincidence that they announced the new ban list and the very first regionals is expanded, because they really want to test that out. And I think it actually has a lot of hype in the community. You know, like I feel way better about expanded with this ban list, and I am more excited to test it out.
Well, just like getting rid of Archeops opens up so many options to where, like, because you basically couldn't play an evolution deck in expanded. Like, you could, but you just risk auto losing to Archeops, right?
Yeah.
Or like having a really hard time having that one Hex Maniac out, or being forced to play cards like Evosoda and Wally and stuff like that. Now
Or
there's like.
Drew.
Or what? Or be Drew, yeah.
Drew.
Yeah, Drew Kennett famously says that Maxie's decks just aren't consistent, so he doesn't need to play a counter. But anyway, I think that's what he said after his Arizona Regionals win with Greninja, where he played no Archeops counters. But, but yeah, I just feel like it opens up a lot more possibility. And we could even see, like, rare candy decks become a thing that haven't been a thing at all in Expanded. We could... we've got new fire Pokemon that could be good. Maybe we see someone bring out like a Candy Embor deck, or maybe we see Metagross move to the expanded format with the use of Tropical Beach. I think helps those decks a lot as well.
Flygon.
Flygon.
I thought I asked Brad into this interview, not Russell, but maybe I got confused. I don't know.
You see his shirt, man?
I have to rep Flygon.
Of course.
It's a contractual thing.
Of course. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of excited for the format. Like Alex was saying, like with the changes they've made, the format is pretty wide open to just like see what happens. And like I think kind of we mentioned this earlier, but like with how wide open the format is, it's also kind of difficult to prepare a deck for that specific format, because like I know whenever I'm choosing a deck for a tournament, I'm always thinking about, okay, what has done well in the past, what decks am I expecting to play against.
All right, Mega Ray.
But then, well, whatever. Anyway, I always have a hard time choosing a deck, but I just fall back on Mega Ray. But anyway, like at St. Louis, for example, played 14 rounds, and I played against 11 different decks. So that's like a huge variance. Like it's really hard to prepare for a format like that. Whereas for the standard format for most of the season, we always knew, like, okay, I'm going to play against this many Decidueye, I'm going to play against probably this many Volcanions. Like, you had a kind of set out idea of what decks you were expecting to play against. Do you guys prefer it one way or the other? Do you prefer kind of just having... I think whenever you're going into kind of more of a blind format, consistency shines through, right? Where whoever's built the most consistent deck is going to end up coming out on top most of the time. But with kind of a more set in stone format of what you're going to play against, you can maybe take more risks with your deck building, if that makes sense. Like, because if I hit this many decks, I'm going to do really well. Like these decks I'm expecting, but if I hit random stuff, I might not do as well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, go ahead. I'll let you go.
No, I was going to say go ahead. I was going to say we can start with Brad, but you went ahead and started.
I like metagaming because I feel like that's something I'm pretty decent at, like reading the field. But being able to actually, like, okay, so in Mexico, I broke most of my rules and played Decidueye Vileplume. That's 2 stage 2s in one deck, and I hated doing that. I did not like the deck. I did not like seeing my opening hands half the games. I didn't, but it felt like the perfect play for Mexico. You know, there's a bunch of Gyarados, Zoroark, a Vespiquen. I knew a lot of good players were playing a lot of those decks, and Decidueye beats them if you get them out. So, like, I would prefer to just be able to play something consistent, I guess. But I like being able to metagame and like being able to know what most people are going to, gravitate towards. And, for Fort Wayne, that's kind of impossible, I guess. Normally we would just have, Worlds format ×2. But for this, it seems like it's going to be pretty wide open.
Totally different.
And I'm honestly excited for it. But.
So on the flip side of that, we see Brad, someone who has hated Decidueye Vileplume at the one tournament he plays. Now we can talk to Alex, who it was his favorite deck he played all year. So
yeah, Brad said a lot of what I was going to say, and I think I'm similar to Brad in that I think my strength as a player lies in my deck building, my metagaming, and kind of those aspects. Whereas a player like Israel Sosa, I'm going to guess, I don't know how he plays, but I'm going to guess that a lot of his strength lies in his in-game skill, how he can craft a plan against a deck he's never seen before, or in a situation never seen. He can do that quicker or better than I can. And so in a format like Expanded, where there's a lot of options, he just plays a deck that has 50/50s across the board, has a lot of options available to it, and then he can make those game plans against these decks.
Sure.
And it's actually that deck blindfolded now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's even said online. I feel like I remember a poll where someone asked how would you rate yourself as a player on a scale of 1 to 10? And I'm pretty sure Sosa said 10 out of 10 with Eviltal and Expanded with Dark Patch, and 7 out of 10 with any other deck in any other format. So.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Expanded and Standard is that, especially the way that they look, whereas the metagaming is for Standard and Expanded is for the in-game skill, just kind of the way I see it like that, is you can go to, if you really only like one format or the other, you can only go to those events, Yep. There are enough Expanded events and enough Standard events, and they're both spread completely across the country, that you could choose to only go to Standard or only go to Expanded.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that other than talking about the specific formats for regionals, the basic only other thing to mention is the prize money payout. So let's scroll down to that. Now there is a little change here. First off, they made the kicker to get to $5,000 much lower for first place, whereas I think last season to get $5,000 we had to have 501, I believe, or 499.
501. I don't know for sure all of the points in the kicker, but I know for sure that unless you had 500 players or 501, whatever, prizes only went down to top 16, and most of them were slightly lowered. I know top 16 wasn't 500, it was 250 instead.
Right.
I think at least top 8 was lower. I'm not sure about first place, but...
Yeah, and I would be really surprised if we saw any U.S. regional fall below 201.
Absolutely.
I think pretty much all of our I think the smallest regionals was 350, right? And that would have been Portland or San Jose, maybe.
Somewhere around there.
I feel like, and the game just continues to grow every single year. Whereas the season before, most regionals were right around 300 people. We saw St. Louis be the largest at 500, and then this year that just got kind of blown out of the water, where we saw St. Louis then have 700 people, and most regionals having around 400 to 500 people. So I wouldn't be I would be pretty surprised if we didn't hit around 400 to 500 people at most regionals this year once again. I would be really surprised if we fell below 201 for any of them. So this seems like this will be the payout for regionals for the U.S. at least. I know in Europe there might be some smaller regionals, or in other parts of the world. But I think the main thing to notice that they did take away from the structure is you no longer get cash for getting top 64, which I think is a pretty big backward step for a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people used that money to help recoup some of the cost on the trip, maybe even pay for the trip depending on how far you lived or if you drove or anything like that. Whereas, if you get top 64, you basically are going to be able to pay for your trip. But now it's you're going to have to get top 32 or maybe even top 16 depending on if you had to fly to that regional or not. So I think at least that's how I approach looking at most regionals, is thinking okay, this helped me pay for the trip, or this helped me pay for my next trip, maybe something like that. I don't know how you guys tend to think of it, but I mean,
that's pretty much how I think about it. Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
the one thing I want to say about
Yeah, go ahead.
about prize money is I know a lot of people are kind of like, they're taking away prize money. They're taking this top 64 money away from us. And kind of the truth to that is they're not actually taking that money away. They're just giving it to the regionals that didn't hit 500 players and giving that to top 32 at those regionals. I know this year there were a lot of regionals that were under 500 players. And so people who made top 32 got no money. Now at all those regionals, they get 250. I do think that some of, at least the really large regionals, the Fort Waynes, the St. Louis's, the Floridas that had over 600 players should have that top 64. But I think some of these regionals are so far in different corners of the country that they'll have less than 500 players. And if you get top 32 at that, or even if you get top 32 and you go from getting 0 money last year's structure to getting 250 this year, or top 16 going from 250 last year to 500 this year, you'll be happy about that. So I don't mind this change overall.
Yeah, I mean, really the only thing is kind of what you said. I would like to have seen, another kicker in place of 501 plus, top 64 gets money.
Yeah.
And, I don't even think they need to increase top 32 necessarily at that size. I mean, I guess it would make sense that they would scale it up because they've scaled up every other placement along the way, but I don't know. Any thoughts to add, Brad, on the cash side of things?
No, I mean, I pretty much agree. If the regional is big enough to warrant bigger prizes, I think it should get there. I don't think it would be too cost effective for them if they doubled, from 201 to 500, over doubled to add a little bit of extra money to, top 64 and everything. Especially because I, was in that range a lot. But otherwise, I think it's basically fine. Nobody's usually aiming just a top 64 an event anyway. So
fair, yeah. I mean, and the very first thing under this table is it does say subject to change, and we saw it last year where they have been willing to make changes in the past. The community was pretty vocal in disliking the way that the cash payout looked at the very beginning of the season because it was honestly pretty terrible. But now, they made changes, so there's nothing to say that they won't come in and add something for top 64 at 500 plus events.
Right.
And top 64 at events, you do still get 18 booster packs. So I mean, it's something, but
and you get way more championship points than you did last.
That's
year.
also
especially from pre-point bump. So pre-point bump was 24 points for top 64, and now it's 50.
Yeah.
So you still don't go away feeling unsatisfied. And as Chip mentioned, but I think this is the only place in the tournament structure, any championship points, any of that, where there will be or could be any change.
Okay.
I think that the regionals money is, well, I just like what you're saying, like adding a kicker for 500 or even 600 people to get 250 for 64.
Oh, you're talking about the money. I thought you were talking about changes to the points.
No. Because somebody had asked, do you think that there will be any changes in the middle of the year? I think that the prize money is the only place in everything that they've announced where you could see a change. Yeah.
For sure. No, that definitely makes sense. And kind of just going back to your point real quick of what you're talking about, how top 64 does give you 50 points. I think that fixes probably one of the biggest problems with last year's structure that Alex touched on way earlier, whereas, you were expected to get more points if you went to a cup as opposed to going to a regional. Whereas now, unless you win a cup, top 64 to regionals is going to give you more. And if you get second, top 128 at a regionals with 400 more people is going to give you 40 points.
Yeah.
So, but kind of shifting gears from that onto the top 16 race, I feel like if you are wanting to be in top 16, you're going to have to earn points at almost every regionals. And if you don't, like Brad kind of alluded to this, you're just going to be X amount of points behind everybody else who's in the race. I remember Alex, after everyone was posting about this on Twitter and Facebook and stuff after the announcement earlier this week, Alex was like, the points have changed, but I'm ready for the top 16 race, bring it on. So are you guys approaching it with that mentality of bring it on, I'm excited for this, or are you kind of like, oh man, I'm gonna have to travel and play a bunch of Pokemon this year?
I had the complete opposite, basically. I said that I may I was debating, if I wanted to take a break of Pokemon, this would be the year to do it because I could basically not play Pokemon and still get an invite.
And still get your invite. Sure. And I think that there will be people who take that approach. Yeah, I've seen some other people post on Twitter and stuff saying, like, I'm going to try to get my invite before Christmas time and then just chill for the rest of the year. And we saw that in 2016. A lot of people got their invite at those early regionals, won a couple cities, and then just chilled the rest of the year. So I think we'll probably see a lot more people do that than we did this past season, more than likely. With the bar at 500 points, it felt like you had to. I feel like pretty much everyone who got their invite was working for it up until the very end of the season, and the people who weren't working toward it already had it, but they were working towards top 16 for the most part, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
So while we're talking about top 16,
go ahead.
So the regional points are ridiculous, but also we didn't really mention internationals points.
Yeah, that was the next
and actually,
tab to pull up.
all internationals points, other than first and second, have also been bumped. And a lot of those, the points for these placements now are even higher than they were before the point or after the point bump this year. So if you look at something like top 16 at internationals, that used to be 100 before point bump. With point bump, it was 150. Now it's 200 points. Top 16 at internationals is the same as winning a regional, which is ridiculous. So, and that's even past, so like, for regionals, there's no best finish limit, and you can go to 15 in US and Canada. There might be one in Mexico, and then also special events, and there's no best finish limit. So you have to go to really just as many as possible, get as many points as you can. But also for internationals, you have to go to every single one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go to one, and everybody else gets top 64, you're 130 points behind everybody else just because you missed one international. And everybody else got top 64.
Just top 128 is 100 points.
Top 128 is 100 points for 400 kicker. That's like going 5-4.
Yeah.
You get 100 points. Yeah, so like...
Did Australia hit 400?
No, Australia did not hit 400.
It was like
the only one that
didn't it? It was like 260?
I believe it was closer to 300 than that.
Sorry,
like 290.
Okay.
But then in Australia, every player who went 6-3 made top 32. So you go 6-3, you get 160 points. At a regionals, you have to go 10-3-1 to make top 8, win 2 games, and then you're in the finals and you're guaranteed 160 points.
Yep.
So it's really ludicrous how many points you get at these, and you just can't miss them if you're going for top 16.
Yeah.
Luckily, the way that things are set up in the US, like for the day 1 invite, you do not need to go to internationals. You do not need to go to internationals to get an invite.
You don't even have to go to North America.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to go to or even place there. But if you want day 2, you really need to go to every internationals, or you have to win multiple regionals.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because that top 128 is the same as top 8 a region.
Yep. Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. So
I think everybody who I've talked to thinks that's ridiculous. I definitely agree with that being ridiculous.
Does this count? It's still best finish limit of 4, right?
Yeah.
With World.
Does it say that over here? Yeah, there's still a best finish limit of 4. Which actually only came into play this season because Worlds points were in that same kicker.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
However, this year there are no Worlds points announced.
Oh.
Yeah,
so there might
we don't know
not
what they're
be
gonna do
Worlds
for that
points.
yet.
I would surmise that there just aren't Worlds points.
Okay. So they could
And
just
I don't
say
think-
the top 4 people, they're going to have their invite regardless.
They
but no
wrote that.
points.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
So I won't be disappointed with 100 points for top 8 Worlds.
Yeah, no.
No.
It says in the middle of one of the the pages, players with invitations earned at the 2017 World Championships will play on Friday unless they qualify for day 2 based on championship points, which is what it said every year. But they also had a table of points from Worlds. So I'm guessing there just aren't Worlds points and it only counts internationals. But then that makes it actually even more relevant to go to every international if you're going for top 16, because you can't take that placement you had at Worlds as one of your 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I was fine skipping Australia for 100 points, but not anymore.
Yep. Now it's going to be like you do really need to.
Now you get to sit on a plane
if you want to be
for
in this
24
race,
hours
you're
to
going
go
to
to
have to go to.
Australia.
You're going to have to go to all of them, but
Dude, I'm gonna chill in Colombia for 24 hours too.
So yeah, well, and in regards to the international championships, since we are kind of moved on and we're talking about top 16 internationals and stuff like that, one other thing to mention is going to be the stipends. Now I know that last time we did this video, both of you guys were kind of hoping to see a change with the way that they did the stipends, at least with the way they determined the stipends for this first international championship. I'm sure you're both fine with it now, since you will both be getting $1,000 at the first international championship this year, since you're both in top 16 for this season. But like, were you kind of disappointed to see this, that they didn't make any changes to the way stipends were determined? And also the cutoff dates are very, very far in advance. For example, like we said, Europe is first. It's going to be based on this past season.
Yeah, so cutoff already happened.
Yeah, it's already done. It's already locked in. Oceania is going to be November 30th, and the international isn't until February. So that's 2 whole months of tournaments, potentially, if not more, that aren't going to be counted towards that tournament for stipends and stuff. I don't know. We'll leave the floor open here. Kind of thoughts on stipends for internationals. We can start with Alex on this one.
Let's start with Brad.
Okay, we'll start with Brad.
I'll let Brad talk first.
I don't. So obviously, yeah, I'm in top 16, so I get $1,000 for London. But I don't know. I would have preferred a change, but I don't know exactly how I would have preferred them to change it. I guess I didn't think too much about it, how I would have liked to see it be. But I guess this is slightly better because we know everything in advance. But it's literally the exact same thing that was last year.
Yeah, like Brad's saying, like on a personal level, I'm obviously fine with getting this stipend. But for the game as a whole, I don't think it's the right way to do it. One of the biggest complaints last year is just kind of like a snowball. You get a stipend for the first one, and then you use the points you got at the first internationals to get a stipend for the second one, and the same thing happens and goes. And they didn't, and they could have, and I think should have just stopped that right now, and gone, okay, everybody's a fresh slate. You can snowball from here, but you have to earn the first spot in the snowball, but you don't, because all the players who snowballed from one to another last year, they get the first stipend internet for Europe, and so they are way ahead of everybody on that kind of that snowball rolling down the hill. I think the best solution, or a solution that I like, would be to do them by quarter.
Yeah.
So they're doing it up until November 30th for Oceania's stipend. So any points you earn between now and November 30th go to Oceania. Then you start over. Any points you earn between November 30th and February 15th go to the stipend for Latin America.
Yeah.
I think that
cool, but kind of weird for Pokemon to track. I guess I don't know. They don't.
Yep.
They seem lazy.
Yeah. I know Sam Chen was kind of talking about this before, but it's like, for whatever reason, I think Pokemon understand that was something they could have done, and they just didn't do it. I don't know if they didn't want to. It was difficult for them. Whatever.
One other thing, just while we're talking about internationals, they have not released the cash prize amount for internationals yet. Yep. Are you guys anticipating it to look pretty similar to this past year, where $10,000 to first place and similar breakout throughout top 8, top 16, so on and so forth? Or do you think they might adjust it with like a kicker system for some smaller internationals? I don't know. What are you guys expecting based on, I guess, the changes we've seen already take place between the 2 seasons? Are there any changes you're really anticipating in this area?
Did they put money from us into juniors or seniors for like the top 64 money? Like, are they getting more money?
For what?
For regionals?
For regionals?
Yeah, for regionals.
So actually, I know at least for championship points, and I think for regionals prizes, the kickers are lower. So they'll earn. So juniors and seniors earn championship points at lower kickers, and I think the same is true for their prize money as well.
Because if they didn't put money in there, I wouldn't be surprised to see more money at our internationals. But
I see what you're saying. So I think
reallocate it.
Yeah, what Brad is saying, I think, is that they had kind of set aside money in case juniors and seniors had hit these kickers at these events, and maybe they have like extra money somewhere that they had been planning to use, and that they could be trying to put that in internationals. I think, personally, I would expect it to be exactly the same as last year, but the fact that they didn't announce it makes me think that they're going to change something. I think if you go in line with how they change other things this year, they would get rid of the top 64 money from internationals.
Okay.
I don't know why they would do that. I don't know if they would add it somewhere else.
Getting rid of the top 64 money for internationals smaller than 500 people, maybe.
Yeah, that's potential.
So,
but
and then they can increase all the payouts for plus 500, which I believe the only one that was plus 5, or was Brazil plus 500?
Brazil was plus 500.
Okay.
London was either just over or just under 500.
I think it was just under.
It was below 512. I know that.
Okay.
It was like before the kick or whatever.
Maybe it was just over. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Brad didn't go to London, but Alex bubbled, unfortunately. But I don't know. We'll see what they do. I personally wouldn't be surprised if we saw an increase even to the first place prize for a plus 500 category. I think that was a thing that a lot of people were kind of wanting. Whereas the person who won Australia, London, and Brazil got the same amount of money as the person who won the U.S. Internationals, which was almost 3 times as big as or more than 3 times bigger than Australia. So I don't know. That's something I would not be surprised to see change.
Yeah, and Pokemon likes to tout the prizes at their events. If you ever see the stream, they are always saying, like the prize for this tournament, first place gets $10,000, $5,000. There's a total prize pool of this much, and I think that they would love any opportunity they have to say
it's even
more
bigger.
money, more prizes. Yeah, even bigger.
Yeah, it seems like they're putting a lot of emphasis on the international, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just threw more money at them.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's basically going to cover just about everything. I think that there's going to be basically 2 mindsets from most competitive players this season. I think most players after Worlds are going to make their decision of, okay, I'm going to go really hard for top 16. I'm going to go to every regional I can. I'm going to try to go to every single international. Or players are going to say, I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go to a couple regionals and get my invite pretty easily this year. I think those are the 2 mindsets we're going to see. But yeah, I don't know. Anything else to add, guys, in relation to the 2017-2018 World Championship invite structure or championship point structure? Anything else to add?
Yeah, so something that we've kind of touched on and kind of like skirted with this idea as we've been talking about this, that I think Pokemon's actually trying to do is actually kind of make this pro level of players or this real pro tier of players. And that actually kind of, if you look at it this way, it kind of drives a lot of their decisions. If you say, why do we have to go to 8 League Cups? Why are they split 2 in quarters instead of letting somebody go to 8 all at once? And I think they want these, like some of the top players, they want League Cups to have Ross Cothans, Michael Pramawats, these players that people look up to, like to watch play, would like the challenge of playing against them. I think Pokemon wants those players at these events, and the same is true for these stipends at these internationals. They want the top level players to go and potentially entice other people to go to see them. And I think you might say that's crazy. There are no pro players in Pokemon, but at Oceania, I was walking around with Michael Pramawat and Jesper Eriksson at different points. Pram had just won Europe Internationals, and Jesper just won Senior Worlds. And the amount of players that just came up and wanted their autographs, having to sign their playmat is kind of weird, I thought it was weird.
Even I've signed stuff.
It's bad when even Brad has signed stuff.
And so I think that idea of these top players does drive some of these decisions that we don't like as players in the game, but makes sense for Pokemon trying to get more people to go to events.
No, I definitely see that. And I know myself as, someone who I haven't, I've only been playing for a couple of years now. I know when I first started playing, it would have been really cool for me to go to an event and play against one of these players that I had been watching streams to try to learn the game from and stuff like that. So, I definitely totally agree with you. But yeah, any other, thoughts to add in relation to those things or anything else about this structure?
I just want appearance fees.
Yeah, I mean that's the next step on the idea of a pro player. Magic, they give out hundreds and thousands of dollars as well as flying you to places.
If you qualify for a pro tour, you're not paying to get there. Usually,
yeah, it's pretty sweet.
And the platinum level players go to regionals and stuff, and they get like $1,500 to show up. So they don't care that much about winning anymore. They just want to show, and they get 3 buys. But that's I don't know if I want that.
So what do you guys think? Like we said earlier, like Pokemon is really, really close to that point, right? Where they're getting pretty close to having professional players where people play Pokemon for a living potentially. But what do you think is going to have to, like, what changes need to happen in order for that to become a reality for certain people?
Hire Chris Szymanski, dude. Let him run.
Let Chris Szymanski run the show.
Run one season and it'll be pretty good.
So I'll say the one thing that's holding Pokemon back right now is this right here, and Brad can show his too. Is that we are showing? I can
get my other shirt if I need to.
We're showing the organizations we represent right here on this video. But if this was a Pokemon official stream, we would be covering this up with a Pokemon T-shirt.
You guys didn't get your trainer chip shirts in the mail that you were supposed to wear for this? No.
Pokemon is so protective of their brand that they won't let players wear other shirts advertising other things on their stream. If they could do that, maybe we would see other organizations take more of an interest in the game. Yep. If you went on stream and they said, like CLG Michael Pramovot versus TSM Ross Cawthon, that would be awesome. Sponsors would like to have that up there. That's why some of these games like Smash Bros are growing so much, because the sponsored real estate is there. But Pokemon doesn't let that happen, and so I think that's stifling some of this growth.
I definitely agree. I think, because that's, with any sport or any other professional esport, anything like that, that's, outside of tournament winnings, that's how people make their money being professionals at it, is through brand deals, through sponsorships. And Pokemon not allowing people to wear shirts on stream or wear jerseys or anything like that is just really going to stunt the growth of the game in that aspect. So hopefully we'll see them make a change. As early as that's something they can just. I feel like pretty easily just do it. At the next regionals that we see streamed and stuff, just allow people to wear their jerseys.
That's absolutely true, but throughout this year, they cracked down on that more and more and more at each event, up until U.S. internationals, where almost every player was wearing a shirt covering something up on stream. So it doesn't look like they're trying to go that way. My guess would be that if they actually want to do that, they would start reaching out to some of these organizations, the ARGs, CCG Castle, someone PC, and be like, and try to control that on like a micro level, and be like, send us the shirt designs that your players are going to wear. We'll approve them, and then we'll let you wear them on stream. So I think that would be like the slow steps, the baby steps of them letting that happen. I don't think that they'll kind of just lift this ban on people wearing shirts. But maybe we see something like that happen this year. Or
have you been told not to wear a Six Prizes shirt?
I've not been told specifically.
Because we've been told. So we're having stream specific to someone's PC shirts that we're going to start wearing, because we were told that this little Pokeball is the reason we can't use it, and the image on the back, part of it, we can't use it. So we're going to have some with literally just say someone's PC, just have nothing on the back, and Russell was talking to the stream people, and they said that that's the reason we can't wear it. So I guess we'll also find out as soon as we get those shirts, and one of us gets streamed. If we're still told to change our shirts, then we know it's a much bigger issue than just whatever they're trying to tell us.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I've heard from most people online and people I've talked to who've had to wear different shirts, is like, it can't have something on it that is similar to a Pokemon existing, like the Pokeball on someone's PC logo, and it can't
or something
have
.com.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Something like a website on it. I feel like those are the big things. But I feel like those are also like specifically the website. That's something that a lot of sponsors are really gonna want advertised on their players' jerseys and stuff. So I don't know. But then there's also like Alex said, he's never been told to take off a Six Prizes shirt, but they as you can see, the one Alex is wearing right now, it doesn't have anything on it that specifically says anything about Pokemon, but they could also say, the notion of Six Prizes, that talks about the Pokemon trading card game, so you can't wear it,
And I think they're just kind of being overly cautious.
Yeah.
I think actually Mike Fouché was wearing this exact shirt at internationals and had to cover it up. This shirt is a parody of an album cover, and so I think Pokemon might have had fears of copyright issues. And so I think fears of copyright issues Pokemon symbols and Pokemon themselves being depicted different ways, websites. There's so many different things that Pokemon doesn't want to show that they just kind of like blanket ban anything that could potentially be that.
Yeah. So hopefully we see them make some sort of change. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think the change is going to be with what Alex was saying of Pokemon working with specific teams and existing companies and stuff to get their jerseys approved ahead of time. So
yeah, ideally.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is the third time I've said this now, but we've had something else to add every time. But is there anything else? Like I don't mind like continuing the video if there's other stuff to talk about. So, is there anything else you guys really want to add specifically to this conversation?
Hey, Brad got his shirt.
Hey, there it is. Yeah, cover it up, Brad.
Just in case.
He's censored.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, guys?
I think that's good.
We got it.
Yeah,
Sweet.
Well,
I really do appreciate you guys coming on and having this conversation. I hope that people who are watching this, whether you're going for just maybe your first invite, maybe this is your upteenth invite, or you're going for that top 16 race, I hope you were able to take something away from the conversation we had this evening and that you enjoyed the video. I'm going to give these guys a second here to do any shout-outs, any plugs, anything like that, social medias, websites, all that stuff. We can start with Alex. The floor is yours, man.
Sure. And check out sixprize.com. We have good articles. We have a podcast. I talked about almost all this exact stuff last night. So if you want to hear Christopher Szymanski and me talk about it as well as this, check that out. And then check me out on Twitter, twitter.com/Kazambolt.
And Brad, take it away.
Yeah. Check out Someone's PC. Similar articles. I haven't written in a while, but I actually will be writing soon. And I know I changed my Twitter handle. I think it's Curcio_TCG now, because I've been told by a lot of people my old one was not very professional. So
it is Curcio_TCG. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Better than it was previously. I'll agree with them.
It was
it's
funny,
better.
but it was not really professional.
Yeah, it's not better, but it is more professional. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, and you guys can find me as well on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all those things at TrainerChip. Definitely make sure you leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. I'll leave links to all of Brad and Alex's social medias and article sites. All those things will be in the description. Definitely check those out. So yeah, thank you guys so much once again for coming on, and I think that is going to close it out for us. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take care.
See ya.